I just got into my office and man am I excited because today is the day that I'm going to start looking for my new van to build out. So in the whole process of building out a van, the first step is that you actually have to find a van. So there are pretty much 3 ways to go about sourcing a new van. Number 1, we can go to the dealership and spec it out exactly as we want it for our build out, so we have all of the features and all of the options that we are dreaming of. Number 2, we can go to a lot that already has vans ready to sell, because this is often a good way to get a deal. If a dealership has a van and they want to sell it, you can often get a better price than ordering it brand new. And number 3, we can go online and look at sites like Auto Trader or RV Trader, because maybe there's a used van out there that would work for our project, or there's also a lot of new vans on those sites. We're gonna start by going to the dealership, and this video is a little bit longer, and if you're not actually gonna go to the dealership and spec out a van, it may be a little bit dry, so you can skip to the next video. But first, let's take a look at everything you need to know to spec out your own van. I'm heading over to my local Mercedes-Benz dealership, where I'll be meeting with Stan. He's the commercial vehicles manager, so he deals with all of the Sprinter sales. We're gonna go through the entire process of specifying and having a Sprinter van built exactly the way we want it. So there are a lot of different features and options that you can get with the Sprinter, and sometimes you can't find what you want on a lot that's already available. So you may need to go through the ordering process. So I thought I would do that with you guys. Stan's gonna walk us through all the options, explain what everything is. So if you're in the market to order a new Sprinter, you'll have all of the most updated information. All right, I have just arrived, so I'm gonna go inside, meet with Stan, and we're gonna talk about ordering a brand new Sprinter. Stan.
Hey, Jeremy.
Let's order a van.
Okay. Well, the first thing we do is we have to select the model, the year, and the production period.
Okay.
And so this starts and opens up an available order that has to match an allocation. So the allocations are usually 3 or 4 months before they're produced, and then the vans usually arrive a month after the production date. So right now we've selected a 2025 2500 cargo van, all-wheel drive, 144. And so this one is the colors that you select, and stone gray is one of the most desirable colors, and then the black man-made leather. This is the packages right here, and we'll go through some of those. And then the options are a la carte options, and some of them conflict with others, and you will get those error messages. So you can see they're numerous. So this particular van that I would order has the COO package to go with the COS package. And so we expand those and see the contents of them if you did not know what they are.
So those are comfort package and driver convenience package.
The driver convenience package is something we most universally order for. So for $456, you get 2 extra keys that are worth about $800 each should you have to order them. You get some other nice stuff, hinge storage compartments, electric folding mirrors, and the 12-volt outlet and the driver's seat baits. So that we get down here is we get some of the high-tech packages that are sometimes hard to get. And so they replaced the CO3 package for 23 and older with the new MBO package. The MBO package provides you the 10.25-inch screen. You can no longer get the 7-inch screen. So they're all 10.25-inch screens, and that's the MBO package for $1,644. That does not include the parking packages that you may want. So we'll see those listed separately. But that's something we'll universally order. Here's the parking package with the 360-degree camera. That's very desirable. Sometimes they don't have the chips for that, but we'll select it here and see if they do.
Okay, so the limitations on some of these packages mostly had to do with chip availability in the past year or so?
For tech, yeah. So distance measuring chips, things like that. But they also have very strange shortages of half steps for trailer hitches. So I can't tell you why that happens, but This will tell us if we have an error there.
Okay.
So this basically is taking off the parking package without the 360 degree, and we'll accept that. Scroll down again. This one is scheduled to have the RV3 package. That includes the moving off information system, which is new, and the bodybuilder requirement for conversion to motorhome, which is just not important in the scheme of things. The exterior lighting package sometimes is difficult to get a hold of, and that's the fog lights with the LED front lights, partial LED rear lights, and with the intelligent high beams, and that's a desirable package. Even though we've selected an all-wheel drive here, it shows you how much the all-wheel drive package is more than the two-wheel drive.
I've found that, if somebody's going to convert one of these to a camper van, then the comfort package, the convenience package, the comfort package plus, all that stuff is worth getting, because it's not a work vehicle anymore. It's something you may drive for multiple days in. And then going back to the 360 degree camera, that's probably the one deal breaker for me. If I wanted a van and I loved every feature on it, but it didn't have the 360 degree camera package, I don't think I would buy it, just because of how nice that is. And you're likely to run into something if you don't have... No, I'm serious. You will run into something.
This will give you some advance notice.
So that's a very important one to me. I also would say the lighting package with the fog lights that illuminate when you turn, does that have LED lighting as well on the front?
Yes, so it'll be LED headlamps and partial LED taillights.
Got it.
So the other things that you'll have choices of, you've got a Comfort Plus package with the heated steering wheel, and you've got a Comfort Plus package without a heated steering wheel. And that's $1,924 or $2,386. So let's see if this one's available. And at this point in time, it is. So chrome grille package, swivel seat package. I think if this is available, 100% of the people want that, because it then builds the van with a shorter pedestal for the seats, so it lowers the seats with the swivel seat package, unlike aftermarket where it's a little bit higher.
Yeah, and the Mercedes-Benz swivels are the best swivels, even compared to aftermarket, because you can use them while you're sitting down. They're not a super thin swivel. They have some beef to them because they lower the seat base. So that's a definite. You don't want to buy aftermarket swivels. How much are the swivel seats, by the way?
$603.
$603. Okay.
So that is pretty much all we're going to cover with packages. And again, this is so personal, and this is why we start with the packages first. One more thing I will add is navigation. So the only reason that I would add factory navigation is because if you're going to use this in some remote location and want to use your Apple or Android CarPlay, you won't be able to use it without cell connection. So the Mercedes-Benz is satellite based, and so that will give you navigation in the middle of nowhere. So now we have a la carte options, and there's a lot. And I'm going to cover a couple that I would definitely choose. And usually this is that which takes the longest, because explaining if they're of use to the client is the yes or no, but the options, and you don't find all of these on the mbvans.com website.
Right, and that's one reason we wanted to sit down and go over this, is because you can go through and build a van, quote unquote, on the site, but it does not give you every option.
So we'll start here with the handbrake. So when you get to swivel seats, it's a slightly different handbrake that actually allows you to set the emergency brake and then drop the handle so that you can swivel the seats. But some people want that area clear to walk from the front to the back, and they would then choose the electric brake option. That would be this one for $317.
So the electric brake eliminates the handbrake and moves it to the dashboard, which is a push button.
It is, exactly. So things that you see green that have zeros after them are items that are included in packages we've selected.
Okay.
So CT1 is a very interesting option. So if it were a 170, I would order every 170 all-wheel drive with that option. It's $157. But what it does is it eliminates vibration that occurs from the driveline, because in a 170 it's a three-piece driveline.
Okay.
And this will reduce the vibration inside the van at speeds of 65 to 75 miles an hour.
Okay, that's the CT1.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is a 144, so we've selected a high roof. And so we select mounting rails, and so that's really a misnomer. The mounting rails are actually receivers in the roof to add ladders, racks, etc. So typically we order that in all the adventure vans.
Yeah, and just that's $341. This is pretty much a must for any conversion van. If you have to buy them aftermarket, they're $900, or from, buy them from Mercedes. And really, if anything is going on the roof, these are pretty essential.
I like a lot of connectivity in the vans I build, and so I'm going to provide as many electrical and charge outlets as possible. So first is a smartphone tray, $177. Here's navigation we selected earlier. So you have some options now for auxiliary batteries. And so this is not to be confused with the batteries that would power your upfit in the future. This allows the outlets that we put in the van from the factory to be hot all the time. So when the engine's off, your 12 volt, your 115 volt, your phone chargers are all operational. And they operate off of a battery that's either in the engine compartment or under the passenger seat base. So until recently, the only place I had to put them was under the passenger seat base, but that was a conflict with a diesel heater. So luckily they allowed us now to put it in the engine compartment, and then you order that with a cutoff relay. The cutoff relay allows the alternator to charge this auxiliary battery, but in the event that all the draw on the auxiliary battery is lowering the battery's output, it does not pull any power from the starter battery. That's the purpose of the cutoff relay.
Right. Yeah, and certainly under the hood is a much better location for an upfit. It's almost like nothing else goes there anyways. So.
Exactly. So a lot of questions come up about the parametric special module, and that has unique uses. So the best description of that is that it integrates into the electrical system of the Sprinter, so that if you wanted to open the door and cause an electrical step to operate when you open the sliding door, it integrates to the parametric special module. But I'm going to select it for a different reason, because I'm going to want this van to have downhill speed regulator. So since we no longer have four-wheel drive low, under certain speeds you can activate the downhill speed regulator, which is like creeping in low gear on a four-wheel drive.
Yeah, and I had this on my last van. It's very useful if you live in hilly places like California, because you might be going downhill for 10 minutes and you can just push a button and you're not constantly on the brakes.
Exactly.
And you can actually set your speed, whether you want to go 6, 8, 10 miles an hour, and it will maintain that speed without, again, constantly engaging the brake.
So we'll get down to where that selection occurs later. And so this, I've selected 115 volt household current. This is an outlet in the center stack, and this is 150 watt maximum output, but it does a great job of powering small batteries and laptops. And then for most people doing an upfit, they don't want this 12 volt rear outlet, but it's really kind of convenient because with that hot all the time, again, from the auxiliary battery, you can connect up a small refrigerator chest, and so when the engine's off, it's still working. So you have an option to have standard cruise control or ET4, which is Distronic, which is the distance measuring cruise control. And it's very useful in congested areas. It's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have to keep changing the cruise control set speed if somebody in front of you slows down.
So here's something that's very useful if you're going to be up to the mountains, which is the electrically heated windshield. So just like a rear window defroster, there's very fine lines in the windshield, and they allow you to defrost that large windshield much more efficiently than the airflow. And people ask me, well, gee, doesn't that make the windshield more expensive when you get the rock and you have to replace it? And my last check was $100 more. So a new option by Mercedes-Benz is the digital rear view mirror, which is F84. And so from my standpoint, I think that's a game changer. So typically in a van, you've got to use mirrors. If you order rear windows for the tailgate, you get some visibility through them, but you're basically blind behind your seats. When you add F84 digital rear view mirror, it actually is a separate rear camera that you actually, through your rear view mirror, select like a day and night setting to see what's behind you, and it's perfect visibility.
And so you can obviously use that while you're driving. I mean, at full
That's
highway
the
speed.
purpose of it, yeah.
And it's not It's different than the camera display that comes up on the screen, which is not available when you're in motion at higher speeds.
So that is a separate camera dedicated just to that rear view.
And it seems like in this specification, we would be getting both. 360-degree rear cameras plus
Exactly.
the digital rear view mirror.
So since the view of the rear view is set farther out in the distance, it doesn't really complement your backup camera and your 360 degree. You'll rely on that in the dashboard view.
Okay, got it. I will say, like, it's for $746, it's something to consider. It's nice to have, but that's also a little bit on the pricier side. But it's technology, right?
When I show it to you, you'll say, I want it.
Okay, good. Oh, also, I saw you went through the FJ 1 and 5. Those are the storage compartments for the upper dash, which are very nice if you're using this as a camper van, because little things that would otherwise be kind of rolling around the van can be stored in those.
I would buy them because they're included in a package, but it does clean up the dashboard and make them a very useful compartment. The wet wiper system, and so what that means is that the windshield washer fluid comes out of the length of the windshield wiper arm, and it clears the windscreen much better than just shooting a nozzle at it, and that's included in one of the other packages. So as we take a look at security alarm, the only downside of that, it has a motion sensor, which sometimes can be an issue when you're sleeping in the van. I usually bypass that. So vans don't have a security system. That's what you'd order for that. We're going to go to FY7, which is the optional 3 button. So this is a button on the remote that allows you to operate the electrical sliding door should you make that selection. A lot of people like that electric sliding door. It's fairly convenient. It operates from 3 different locations on the key, on the dashboard, and by a button by the door. The only caveat I give you on the electric sliding door is that if you're going to build a vanity that's going to occupy half that van side door opening, if the electric door needs an adjustment, you got to pay to have that vanity removed before we can make that adjustment. So warm air cool duct is an inexpensive option. So what this does, it provides a floor vent between the 2 front seats that allows you to have some ventilation to the rear from the front heater air conditioning. And it takes up no space. It's $67, and it just adds to the ventilation system.
Yeah, I will say though, most of the time when people put in like an aftermarket wood floor or hydronic floor, you have to be aware of if that duct is there, then the floor layout is slightly different. Most manufacturers do accommodate for it, so.
Okay, so heat insulation for the rear compartment is an option, but if you're going to upfit the van with Jeremy, you're going to use a much more robust insulation than this provides, so we're going to bypass that.
Okay, how about the H12? Because that's kind of a big question mark for a lot of people.
So it's a little bit complicated in its actual execution in the van. So the engaging of that requires a series of buttons in the van, and I would say in most cases it's not applicable, especially if you're going to get an S-bar diesel heater.
So my understanding of the H12, I mean, it's a diesel-fired heater that's undermounted, and it's hooked up to the coolant loop, or it's the coolant of the engine, and it's intended to provide additional heat that a diesel engine wouldn't produce enough heat when it's in very cold conditions, right?
I think that's
keep the engine warm and to keep your cabin warm, because if it's 10 below and you're driving through Utah and it's windy, the diesel engine actually doesn't make enough heat to keep everything warm. Things will start getting cold. I've experienced it before, so this is an option to have that installed from the factory, but it does get in the way of a few things that are installed under a van, and I haven't, we live in coastal California. It's not a necessity, but maybe if you live in a really cold place, I would get the H12 option.
So next we'll go to rear window defrosters. This will be only if you're going to get windows in the rear. And a lot of times in the 144s, I will put the rear windows in because from a specification standpoint, they're inexpensive from the factory if you want that visibility. So let's talk about HH4, thermotronic automatic climate control. So the heating air conditioning systems in a commercial van are just that, commercial van. You select manually where you want the air to go, you select the temperature, you then adjust the fan. So by going to thermotronic climate control for $383, you get an automatic function, which is a much more civilized way of maintaining temperature and getting to temperature.
And it's just a button that says auto for climate, right? You just
Right.
push it and it does all the
Does the
adjustments
vent
for you.
selection, temperature, maintains it, lowers the fan when it gets to the temperature. This is kind of interesting, but I select J51, which is a fuel gauge optimized for auxiliary fuel tap.
Yes.
So it does provide a fuel tap in the tank for you to actually draw off the fuel tank. But more importantly, for me, is that it actually measures the volume of fluid in the tank, where if you don't get this, it is a calculation based upon your average fuel economy and from the measurement of when the tank was last filled. So it's not an exact fuel tank reading you get unless you choose $81 worth of.
Right. And a lot of people, probably at least 50% of people, you may know this, put extended range fuel tanks on these, and you need the J51 option, or else you have to buy a program dongle to get the fuel gauge to read correctly if you've done that. So as an option, you should just get it.
Okay. So for no charge, you can get engine oil level display at cold start. And I ordered this in all the vans because when you start the van, it gives you a reading of your oil level as if you got out and used your dipstick, but you don't have to. So we put that in all the vans. Something that is an option which shouldn't be an option is JA7 blind spot assist. So with these vans, and if you've ever had a blind spot assist, when something is in your blind spot, the triangle in your mirror illuminates red. And yellow. And when you put your turn signal on to make a change when that is yellow, it will then flash red and beep. And so I suggest blind spot in all the vans. An option is traffic sign assist. So what this does for $321, it'll read the speed signs and display it in your navigation as well as your central display. Side guard assist is new, and that is a mandatory take when you select blind spot. And so what this does is uses the parking sensors and measures if there's anybody in the passenger side, such as a bicycle, so that you're not moving off and cause that type of drama and jeopardy. Attention assist is inclusion in another program, and that's basically monitoring your driving habits the first 15 minutes, and then after that, if you drive in a way that makes the program think that you're drowsy, it will vibrate the steering wheel and put a coffee cup up to ask if it's time to take a break. So if you're going to use the van for bicycles or towing, and the van has a 5,000 pound towing capacity and a 500 pound tongue weight, order the trailer hitch. It's inexpensive, it's $166, and then you also order the half step next to it. So if you're going to order a full length bumper for the rear, which you can get through various upfitters, then you wouldn't order the half step because the aftermarket would bolt onto that trailer hitch. I always order rims painted black because even if you're going to put your optional 17-inch alloys and you're going to sell your rims, they will sell much faster black. Small items, additional armrests, which are leather pads for the door, $59, it's worth it. All those are included in other package items. So this has a sliding door 2-stage opening. And so if you don't get the power door, what that gives you is a stop in the middle. So if you don't want the power door and you're on an incline or decline, you can stop the door in the middle, not having to be all the way open or closed. We're going to take that off. This was originally scheduled to have the electric closing assist. So with the manual door, you can close it more gently, and then the rear will power in with a electric assist in the rear. But we're going to put on T55, which most people like, the electric sliding door. The electric sliding step is really not the most attractive for the adventure vans. It's made mostly for passenger vans. It has a big yellow bar, so we're going to go past that.
Yeah, definitely pass. That's number T57, pass on this step.
So I will also order in the vans as many assist handles as possible to help you get up. The van is 4 inches taller than a two-wheel drive van, but that extra 4 inches does give you an extra length jump up to get.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very, I mean, off the lot, even before you do upgrades to tires or suspension or anything, they're very tall, and it's a big step to get in the van.
So assist handle at the B pillar,
Yeah.
and that's at the sliding door opening, is $37. So depending upon what your ultimate configuration is, you may not need the wood floor. The wood floor is a composite wood floor, but if you want to start out with something else other than just a sheet metal, you would order the wood floor. You can put various things over it, Jeremy can tell you. So I usually order them with the wood floor and the sidewall hardboard. So it finishes off the cargo area if you're not going to be able to immediately get your upfit done.
Just as a reference, the wood composite floor and the sidewall come to about $1,000. It
Right.
looks like. So if somebody's gonna immediately upfit it, you wouldn't want those.
You wouldn't want to
but they're a
spend
good deal if you're not going to upfit it right away.
So when you get windows in the rear doors, you have to get storage compartment in the rear doors for $144, which is a plastic liner finished off the rear doors. I've also added a door edge, protective edge, and again for an adventure van, we'll probably take that off because you're not going to be loading that many things into it. It's going to wear the edge of that van. And here's where we can order windows. Second row fixed window driver's side. So this is directly behind the driver, and one the opposite side, the one in the passenger door. So they're $164 each from the factory. However, if you're going to want to upgrade those to ventilated windows, I believe Jeremy and most people don't want those window holes that they have to use a diamond studded rope to cut out the seal so they don't damage the paint.
Right. Yeah. If you're gonna get, if you know you're gonna get ventilated windows, just leave those areas as the straight cargo sheet metal. However, I would say that a solid glass window in the sliding door is my recommendation because of visibility.
Let's put that in.
Yeah. And then every other window that you put in can be ventilated. And so the sliding door itself, since it does also get a lot of abuse, open and close and open and close, it's nice to have just a solid factory window in it.
So these are other windows you can actually order as if it had all the windows around like a passenger van.
Right.
So the question comes up often for me, do we put rear doors that open to the sidewall? And those are great when you don't want the van's doors to open to 180 degrees because you want that beautiful view out the back of the van. But the conflict is when you add the rear ladder or the rear storage boxes or bicycle carrier, you don't want those opening up into the side of your van and denting it. So a lot of times we'll have to take that off depending on what you plan on using the rear door storage for.
And that's the difference, what we call like 180 hinges versus 270 hinges.
Exactly.
The 270 is the full open to the sidewall. 180 is, well, just 180. So if you're going to do equipment on the back doors or anything mounted on there, you don't want the 270 hinges.
So you have a choice of two different windows in the rear. You can get rear windows with wiper washers or just rear windows. And I suggest for the difference getting the wiper washers unless there's a conflict with what you're going to load in the back of the van. So that's what this has at W78. And when you add rear windows and a sliding window, then you have to get W70, which is 90% tint black for those windows. And that's pretty much it. The rest are just minor little classifications.
Okay, there's a couple things that I have been seeing on the spec sheets regarding center of gravity or additional reinforcements for, vans that are known to be upfitted or heavier. Can you explain that?
ESP is increased for center of gravity, so this is for vans that are known to be carrying more weight than approximately the 3,700 pound capacity that they're made for. And so that'll probably be in the RV package over here.
And does it show all the features when you add the RV package?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, RV3, what's that?
So I am not sure.
I see above that where it says RV suspension bundle 0, RV1 package means it's already included elsewhere.
Nothing. So you're picking up the technical bundle and the suspension bundle for a net difference of 530.
Okay, because that's just something that obviously, we always tell people when you're driving around in the vehicle, it needs to be at GVWR or lower, right? Because your brakes and your suspension and center of gravity are all designed for a certain weight, and you should not exceed that. But also, you would want any additional. I mean, people will push it, so you up to the GVWR is 9,000 pounds, 9,050.
9,050.
Yeah. So any additional reinforcements we can have that handle heavier weight would be something to include. So, yeah. Okay, so that is the full list of options for a new van. And if we were to order right now, you're saying this is a 2026.
So they haven't released the allocation for 2026 year models. The 2025 year model production will be completed in June, July. Usually they take about a month off as they retool, and then we should be getting pricing and package contents from the 2026, which is called the dealer ordering guide, slightly before production.
Okay. And so right now we could save this for an allotment in the future, but we won't actually even know the final price yet now, will we?
We don't, but what we're going to do right now is we're going to submit that, and we'll find out if there's any conflicts in the whole ordering scheme. And if there's not, we're going to go up here to save it, and we're going to save this as Jeremy's next van. So when an allocation comes up, and I want to fill that production slot with the selections that you or Jeremy have chosen, all I have to do is go to that in configuration and convert it to an order, and we've started the process of ordering a van for you.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Super helpful, and it looks like there's a few new options available, but it's the same Sprinter. It appears to be that we've known for since essentially the all-wheel drive with the new engine and transmission came out, which was starting in 23.
9-speed automatic, which keeps the engine mostly in the peak torque range of 1,400 RPM, so it's very efficient and very fuel economical for that size van.
Also, I noticed, the big changes it's starting in 23 where, you can feel the difference in the engine. It feels zippier, a little bit more like a car. Prior to that, if you were to get a four-wheel drive, they were a bit sluggish, so they're much zippier now. The transmission certainly is a lot smoother. The steering was a big improvement. Okay.
So it's a much lighter, more precise steering, and by having the electromechanical steering, they're actually able to do more precise steering angle diagnosis that integrates into active lane keeping assist, crosswind assist, so it measures much more accurately and gives you much better assist in those safety features.
Okay, and just to confirm, there's no option to delete the DEF system.
No, as a matter of fact, in California, you can't drive a diesel without a DEF.
Yeah, that's the only thing we wish wasn't on there. The vehicles otherwise are very good. Engines are good. Drivetrain is good. I suppose the DEF system has its purpose, right? I mean, it turns noxious fumes into water, and
so for the inconvenience of having the DEF fluid, and you've got a couple DEF gauges on there to be able to monitor just like you do your fuel level, it's worth it. Cleaner environment, less smell, better fuel economy.
All right, well, thanks. I appreciate that. And you gave me the build sheets on two vans that you already have here that are all-wheel drive, and they are upfitted and ready to sell. So, maybe we could just take a look at those two vans, and then I'll be able to decide exactly what route I'm taking.